Don't forget to tune in to Jam Down TV.
Carabao. Part 1. Here, Dalkie Martin. When was that fight at Thriller in Manila? About 1974, wasn't it? Yeah, I remember. Yeah, I went over there like as part of the world promotions, like boxing promotions. You know, there was a lot of amateurs and stuff like that, and they go over there to promote the thing because it was Muhammad Ali versus Joe Frazier. I met these couple of twins, didn't I? One called Marco and one called Jerry. Nice fellas, like, you know what I mean? They showed us around the Philippines. Ever since then, like, I've kept in touch with Marco and Jerry. After coming back to London, I didn't carry on boxing because like, I ended up getting in trouble, always having fights, getting in the nick, in and out the nick. So anyhow, when I come out the nick, I met this fella, like, he was an underground fucking kingpin, wasn't he? They called him Bulldog Baines, and he used to do all these prize fights and stuff, so he used to fix me up with fights. I made a deal with him and he used to give me 50-50. So every time I got paid, like, and I was doing like a couple of fights a month and knocking people out, you know what I mean, I used to send a bit of money down to my mates out in the Philippines because they really looked after me, you know, Jerry and Marco. From time to time we'd have a good old chin wag on the dog and bone and they'd tell me about what's going on, you know what I mean. One day, and he says to me, like, all that money you've been sending me, like, it was like 2 years after, you know what I mean? He says, all that money you've been sending me, guess what I've gone and done? I've gone and bought a gym, and we got our own gym now, me and my brother. So anyhow, you should come down here, we'd love you to come down. So I says, yeah, I'd love to do that, you know what I mean? So pretty soon I packed all my bags and that, I sorted stuff out because things were getting out of hand. Bainesy started doing other things, old Bulldog started doing other things, and it was getting on top of him, you know. So I had to let him go, you know what I mean? I ended up doing a bit of my own promotions and stuff like that, get a bit more money together, and then I left there and went down to the Philippines. When I got down there, fucking heat was sweltering, you know what I mean? I've forgotten what it was like. When I was younger, like, I could handle it, but now it'll take some getting used to, you know what I mean? Well anyhow, I got in the airport and there's this geezer flagged me down and says, this way sir, as he took me trolley and started pushing me towards a black car. It was like one of them people carriers. So anyhow, I jumped in and he turns around to me and he says to me, would you like a drink sir?
So I says, yeah, what you got?
And he says,
I got water, I got orange juice, I got pineapple juice, and I've got rum. You like rum, sir? It is called coconut rum. We call it lambanuk, sir. Would you like to drink, sir? Would you like to try?
So I told him, yeah, just a drop of that.
to be continued. Carabao, Part 1. Carabao, Part 2. From rags to riches. After leaving the airport, we set off. Well, it weren't a long drive. And we pulled into this apartment, right uptown place it was. Took me upstairs to the penthouse. Beautiful room it was. And he said he'd come back with me. The driver said he'd come back with me later on. Take me out for dinner and meet the twins. So I took my time and just sort of like chilled out for a bit, like everything there, like drink and everything there. And he said, like, if you need anything, just call downstairs. So just make yourself relax, like, you know what I mean? So what I did, I made a few phone calls, like just phoned a few people abroad and just let them know that I've arrived safely. And then I fell a kip. It was about 8:30 when I heard the doorbell ring. And a little fella comes, I open the door and he comes in and he says, I'm here to take you to the restaurant to see the boss. So I says, okay then, I'll be down in a minute. So when I got downstairs, we jumped in the motor and it was about a 20-minute drive. And we got to this beautiful restaurant, mate. It's called Sin Lu's Restaurant, Chinese place, beautiful. So anyway, we went in and he took me right round to this private dining area. It's like private rooms in there, you know what I mean? Blinding it was. And he took me in there. And
I see the twins like, and they both turned around to me and says, "Welcome to Manila," and started to introduce me to their mate. There was bookmakers, there was car front owners, there was hotel owners and a few more, you know what I mean, club owners and stuff like that. They were all sort of like investing in the boxing promotion, underground stuff like, you know what I mean, because there was a lot of underground fighting going on at the time, and I think Marlo and Jerry was really like top men at it. They also introduced me to some of the fighters. It was their own fighters from their own camp, like, you know what I mean. There was also some beautiful sorts like who must have either been their mistresses or their birds for the night, like, because it was a bit like that over there. Click of a finger, all this food started coming in, and a little while after that, the table was packed out with food, mate. I've never had such good Chinese food. Brilliant. So I munched in like, and we all had a good chin, mate. Everything was looking hunky-dory. And he told me like, I'll be going down the gym with him tomorrow, and I'll be able to meet Joey, one of the fight matchmakers, and also some of the other trainers. Also mentioned that they're going to give me a car, like he's got loads of Carter twins, and I can get one of them. They also mentioned that I'll be meeting the promoters, like, because a lot of the stuff that goes on is underground betting. Then Sin Lou popped in. God, what a blind bird she was. She wasn't there when I first come in. Really groomed up nice and looking like a diamond, I tell you what. She was the owner of the restaurant, wasn't she?
Carabao, Part 3. From Rags to Riches. Another one of Dalkie Martin's stories. I've been there now for a couple of months, getting used to the way things were going at the gym. I was training a lot of fighters, you know what I mean? And everything was looking hunky-dory. Anyway, one morning I got up and I was having breakfast, like, I could see, like, from the window of the penthouse, like, down into some shanty towns. And I see these kids playing about, you know, steaming one another like we used to play when we were kids. But one of the kids, like, every time it was his turn, they kept running away. So I had my breakfast, finished it off, like, and jumped in the shower, put a nice bit of clubber on, and I was there, you know what I mean? Jumped in the motor, driving down the road, you know, place called Paragnacchi, I think it was called. Anyhow, I headed on straight down to the gym, but I noticed there was a bit of traffic built up, like, I had to stop, like, but where I stopped was right outside the front of the shanty town entrance, like, and I see the kids, like, sitting on the wall, and he runs over to me, the big one, the one they kept running away from, and he shouts out, "Hey sir, what is your car? It's a nice car, I like your car, sir. What is your work, sir? Where are you going, sir?" You know, the way they fire out the questions at you. So I says to him, "Yeah, alright then, you know what I mean. What is your job, sir?" "Trainer down at the gym," I told him. "I like fighting, sir. I want to be a champion." Traffic started moving and I had to get away, like, so I says, "Like, see you later, sir." And I was on my way. Got down the gym and there, and I had a fantastic day, like, there was some new fighters in there. A couple of days later, I says to myself, I better take the car for a clean. I thought the car needs a bit of a clean, and I popped in there. When I popped in there, I see these kids, like, and the same fella comes running up to me and he started sparring and ducking and diving, and he says to me, "Fighting, sir. I like fighting, boxing, sir. I want to be a champion." Well then, if you want to do boxing, I can take you down the gym. You meet me Thursday afternoon and I'll take you down the gym. Anyway, what's your name? "My name's Daniel Polilio, sir, but everybody call me Danny." So as he kept, like, sparring, ducking and diving while his couple of mates were polishing away at the car, I'm sure he should have been polishing and all. But anyhow, I says to him, "Danny, listen, if you want to do boxing and that, I can train you. You come down on a Thursday and then I can start training you." Anyhow, after they finished cleaning the car, I'll give them like 500 pesos each. They all started shouting, "Thank you, sir, thank you, sir, thank you, sir." All jumping for joy. It was about having 500 pesos. That's about £5. Then I was off. Come Thursday, Danny did show up. He showed up with his couple of mates, you know what I mean, and I started training him. But I could see he was a real fit young lad, real determined, you know what I mean, and he had a good sense of, you know what I mean, aggression. He was only 16 and he lived with his dad. His mum had left his dad because his dad was on the sauce all the time and kept bringing the money to the cockfights and that.
to the arena and losing a lot of money. So Danny was just like wanting something to do. He was nearly 17, and I thought, well, I better train this kid because he's determined. And I thought I'll give him a bit of extra training. So I upped his running, give him a couple of miles more, and then he was doing more like weight training and other things that he'd never done before. I was getting him to do. The kid was loving it, you know what I mean? I'll tell you what, mental training, you know what I mean? About fighting, you know what I mean? So I started treating him like a son. Kept on training him harder though, you know what I mean? Carabao, Part 4, From Rags to Riches. Wasn't long after meeting St. Lou that she was up and off again. She really loved travelling, you know what I mean? She'd been round the world, and she's going round again. Been all over Europe and Americas and everywhere. She even told me about her partnership with the twins. That's why they had a special private dining area where they kept their meetings every night. You know, she was one of their main investors, really. I could tell she liked me though. Anyway, I got to meet Joey. What a character he was. He's a little tiny fella, right flash Harry, you know what I mean, with a big fat cigar and a big floppy hat, you know what I mean. He really looked funny, but he cannot make a deal, I'll tell you that. He gets the fighters, puts them together, he travels all the country like looking for fighters, you know what I mean. Considering it was all underground stuff, you know, all the bets was underground, so people were betting big money, and you know, there was a lot of it going on, you know. The twins always used to put a fair bit on, you know what I mean. So he asked me to put some on, you know what I mean. So I put 10 grand on Danny. Yeah, he was my boy, you know. I got a bet my boy, you get me? They call him Carabao now, you know what I mean. He was really looking tough. It comes the day of the fight. We all set off, you know, the twins in the Hummer, like they had a big Hummer where they fit loads of the boxes in. And I was driving along with Danny and a few of the other trainers. It was about 9:30. Got through the traffic, like quite a bit of traffic. They said we're heading to a place called Marikina. I've never been to Marikina before myself. But anyway, we travelled all the way through Manila, right over to the other side and then down by the river. I think they call it the Pasig River. It was about 10:45 we got there. It was an old disused warehouse, I think it was. A big place, like a storeroom. And yeah, right dark, you know what I mean? Leading up to it, you could hardly see anything. And then out from the blue, someone shouts out, "Hey boss! Hey boss!" That's the twins would answer and shout, "Yeah, everything good? Okay, take it easy." But anyhow, this door opens and this couple of big fellas with Rottweilers standing at the door, all dressed in leather and stuff like that, you know what I mean, right? Hardcore. And it was like that all the way through, you know what I mean? Top looking security guys, because this was all underground stuff, you know what I mean? But we got in the place and there was like loads of people milling about. There was smoke, you could smell some weed, and there was heavy reggae sounds. I think it was the Buchanan sounds. Yeah, that's right, they were putting it down, you know what I mean? And Danny, I've got Danny, we got in the corner, and I says to him, "Danny, you make sure you sort this kid out." He was a big lanky fella from over in Pasig. I think he was from Nigeria. Been knocking people out, you know what I mean? He's had 3 fights and he's won them all. Bloody hell. Big lanky fella, about 6'8", I think he was. I says to Danny, "You sort this kid out." And he smiled and he said, "Okay, boss." As he started to warm up. What an event this looks like. So much people, all the birds were blinging and stuff like that, and bets going on. It's hard to believe. The twins were running all of this. No wonder they had so much money. And they were caking it on the bets and all. But anyhow, the twins took me over to meet some more of their mates and the big betters and stuff like that. You know what I mean? Bookmakers. Them little
Little Joey comes over with a big sheet of paper, followed by his two big miners, still puffing on a big cigar the way he always does. Then he turns around and he says like the order of the fights, and it worked out Danny was on the 6th. So there was going to be like a few fights before Danny went in. That sounded all good to me because that could give him enough time to warm up and I'll get back round there and get him really psyched up. Well, it's not too hard with that kid because he's so keen, you know what I mean? Nothing fazed him. Anyhow, we carried on and watched a few fights, and looks like our camp was doing really well. We had 4 winners and 1 draw, you know what I mean? And then it comes up to Danny, and Danny got in a ring, and this fella was like Nkomo, his name was, and he was a lanky fella, and Danny just kept his cool until the bell rang. When the bell rang, Nkomo came rushing out to Danny, swinging some big wild haymakers, and Danny ducking and diving, sticking him in the ribs and that, and then Danny comes with an uppercut and Nkomo bounced back, and then Danny was on him like a lion out of a cage, that kid went, and the crowd started to say Carabao, and then the bell rang. Round 2, Danny comes out, Nkomo comes out, bowing and weaving and swinging, big ones. Danny ducked right under and hit him right on the side of the head, and then come right up and hit him, and then stuck him again, and it was all over. Nkomo melted on the floor like butter. That was my boy. Yeah, and that was how it all started. Danny kept winning a few fights and that, and we kept making loads and loads of money. Carabao, Part 5, From Rags to Riches. Danny was getting quite popular now, winning so many fights, you know. He's done like 6 fights on the run, and he just keeps knocking people out and really hurting them, you know. But anyway, the money was beginning to pile up because I was winning quite a fair bit of money on the bets and all, you know what I mean. But I always made sure that I paid Danny well. After a fight, I'd make sure he gets 15,000, 20,000, depending on how much we won on the bets. And that was besides what the twins would give him, you know. He didn't spend much. He was down the gym most of the time. But sometimes he'd take his mates out for something on a Saturday, you know, down the mall and have an ice cream and watch a movie. Have a nice time with his mates, you know. But one day he come down the gym crying his eyes out. I says, Danny, what's the matter? And he turned around to me and he says, my papa stole my money. I says, what do you mean your papa stole your money? My papa, he take my money from my drawer. I keep my money in the drawer, and my papa, he take and he go to Sabong and he lose my money. What, the cockfight? Yeah. Oh mate, that was really terrible. I could see the anger in his face, and he was really so angry. I guess he would have probably knocked his papa out, you know what I mean? But boy, I tell you, didn't he train hard that night? So I told him, that aggression you've got to turn that into positive aggression and use it and sting and cut. You know you're the Carabao and everyone's screaming for you. You walk down the road and everybody knows you. So, you know, son, we're going to make loads more money and I'm going to help you get yourself a bank account. All right, son? Thank you, son. So it was a couple of days after that, I ended up round his house and I met his dad, you know what I mean, his old man and his uncle and that. And boy, did I tell you, could they drink. They were on the sauce all day long, do you know what I mean? Danny lived in a little old shack, really. It was just the size of one room and there was a screen across it where his little bed and that, where he slept, and his little drawer, his little dresser, and his old man had a little stove there and there, and the table outside, always on the sauce. But anyhow, he seemed like a nice enough fella. He thanked me, by the way, for looking after his son. So he must have been a nice fella, really. Just had a serious habit of going to the cockfights and losing money and drinking all the time. He turned around to me and he says, "You help my son. One day my son big champion and he buy me big house." I says, "Yeah, but first we gotta get him a bank account." So the next day we went down and I put some money and opened an account for Danny. And he was doing well. His two mates came along as well, you know. Yeah, he was really over the moon having his bank book and his bank card.
Dalkie Martin stories. I'm going to be telling you a story about Tommy. You know, Tommy come out and he's trying to go straight, like, because he told me he wanted to knock it all on the head. So anyhow, he goes on a mission one day with Kevin. You know Kev. Kev's a driver for some blagging firm over in Chinkford or something, a cheap girl, I don't know. But anyhow, he comes round, he picks Tommy up. I mean, Tommy was waiting for him actually on somewhere down in the East End. So anyhow, he stops and he picks him up. And then he turns around and he says, "We've got to go to Chinkford to see some fellas about some lock-up down in the docks." So Tommy says, "Yeah, all right then." You know, thinking, yeah, the geezer can turn on some work for him. But anyhow, Tommy knows a load of people. They set off and they head over to North London somewhere. And when they got there, they says, "Come on, hold up, we got to go down the docks." And so they all jump in the transit van, nice one, an old big one, jump in there, and they all made their way down to the docks. When Tommy got down the docks, they all got down there. Tommy saw I think it was Brian, another big fella, but they got on like an ass on fire, them two big fellas. And he took Tommy around to see all these containers. "Look at all these fucking containers," he says to him. "Half of them belong to fucking, what's his name? Something like that. I don't know half of the cunts they talk about." But anyway, this is a Dalkie Martin stories. Remember, it's a Dalkie with an L. Dalkie Martin. Anyway, Brian took him round, there was loads of containers. He took him round there and he pulled open this fucking yellow container. And this yellow container, when he lifted it up, I fucking see Tommy, his eyes nearly popped out. Fuck's sake. Tommy turned around and Tommy says, "Fucking hell, all that stuff there, look." Brian turns around and he says, "Listen, there's a load of fucking snide watches and that, you know, like brand names and that, I won't call them out. A load of watches, loads of laptops and all that, you know, the old fucking fruity one. There's a load of everything in here, Tom. Now listen, we can set you up here, because we know you want to go straight, and everybody loves you, Tom. So I'm trying to help you out here. All you got to do, grab a load of this." As soon as he says that, Tommy fucking started lugging it all in the transit van. Anyway, when he fucking filled it right up, all sort of stuff, it was phones and laptops and fucking loads of gear. Unbelievable stuff. Anyway, Tommy sat down with Brian after and they fucking started talking. And Brian says to Tommy, "Listen, mate, you get yourself a stool down the market and knock these cunts out. You'll be alright, I'll set you up, yeah? That's the best I can do for you, Tom. Alright? Because you looked after my mate in the nick, you see? And he told me to look out for you when you come out. So this is from your old cellmate, you know the one. So tell me who that was like. I don't call him your name, but and this is what he says I should do for you, is look out for you. You know what I mean? He shook Brian's hand and, you know, I can see that's like mate for life, you know. Tommy. He looked after someone in the nick. And this is the favours they fucking, you know, return. Tommy thought, yeah, that's really nice. So in here, good thing about this is Tommy got back with his daughters, like, cause, you know, like his daughters weren't talking to him and that, and Tommy was fucking, that's half the reason why Tommy would go out and fucking bash people up. He had so much fucking anger because his kids, he couldn't see his kids. Do you know what I mean? Tommy started knocking all this stuff out, didn't he? And the thing about it is, Tommy got back with his daughters. His daughters come round and see him and he told them the score, like, that it's all going to sort of like start kicking off down the market. He was so happy, I've never seen him so happy. His kids were with him and they're all going to help out on the market. So Tommy's down the market now and he's flogging all this gear and he's loving it. He's raking in a fair bit. So that's probably the reason why Tommy was really fucking mad. He missed his daughters. So anyhow, he got them working on the stall. And it was really nice, you know, they were really sort of like starting to really admire their dad. And you know he had such a reputation, but that's why they were safe on the streets. Do you know what I mean? When anything happens, someone turns around and says, do you know that's Big Tommy's daughters? No one fucks about. But anyway, it's nice for them to all get back together, working on the stall. Dalkie Martin show, I'm out and about today, yeah. Fucking loving the sunshine, yeah, nice. Dalkie Martin stories.
Tommy's party tonight, innit? Yeah! Just jumped out the bath when Dalkie Martin come shouting. Boy, ain't you ready yet, he says. I said, hold on, give us a chance. I've got to put a pair of f***ing strides on and a nice dickie, slap some sweets on and I'll be down in a minute. He says, Tony's in the motor. I says, Tony? Yeah. Oh mate, I'll tell you about Tony, he's a nutter. He's got a garage down the road, yes, and he f***ing loves driving. I'll tell you, one day I went down the garage and I never laughed so much in my life. I see Tony, he's come out from underneath this car and he's covered from head to toe in black grease. But anyway, he fucking half loves driving. He's got one of them souped up things, I forget what you call it, but it's a fucking beast. So we had to cross the river, like, and we headed off across one of the bridges, I can't even remember. Me and fucking Dalkie Martin was fucking knocking back some souls. Getting a bit wacky. We were really getting in the mood. I don't know what part of South London it was, but it seemed like we were driving forever. When we got there, the place was heaving. I couldn't believe it, but you know, Tommy, he's a popular fella, you know what I mean? There was my birds like that, fucking blinding, all tied up. I mean, I thought to myself, I gotta have some of that. The place was heaving, you know what I mean? People, and then Tommy shouts out like, oi, you chaps having a drink? Let's go in the kitchen. So we all made our way into the kitchen and then Tommy dips in his pocket, pulls out a big bag and he slaps it on the table. Fuck me. He shouts out, let's party. You know, like Tommy, he loves having a good time, you know, but he just come out so like everyone was looking out for him, you know what I mean? Tommy was a nutter. He was like that, funny fella he was. Half the time you never know if he was serious or not, you know what I mean? You look him in the eyes and you could tell like he's about to lose it, you know what I mean? But it was nice to see Tommy. So anyway, we all started having a couple of drinks. Tommy says, he laughed when he said it, he said, oh, it's been a long while, you know what I mean? I want to get hold of something, you know what I mean? So we all milled in the room and started getting hold of some birds, like. I ended up pulling a bird from somewhere down in Camberwell. After the party, when everyone crashed out, I ended up on the 18th floor early in the morning. Like, I was still off my face, and we banging away like, and then Dalkie Martin calls, didn't he?
Banging it.
Still laugh about it. Right funny it was. He says to me, "Didn't we have a night last night?" he says. "Where are you now? You come over and pick you up, you know what I mean?" I told him I was on the 18th floor somewhere around in Camberwell. I couldn't even fucking tell him how to get there. So the bird got on the phone and she gave him directions, didn't she?
Dalkie Martin story time. Yeah, and it ain't no Jack and Ori, there's some good stories in there.
With a drink.
White rum and black currant.
It's Dalkie Martin, innit?
What are you drinking, Mark?
The usual, Bob, you know.
Dalkie Martin doing a shing-a-ling.
Cheers.
Always kicking off. Always kicking off now. Always kicking off. Always kicking off now.
I was walking down the road the other day and I bumped into Tommy. You know Tommy, the big fella with hands like shovels. And he turned around to me and he says, "Fancy a drink, John?" So we bowled into the nearest boozer like and we had a couple of pints of lager, didn't we? And he turns around to me and he says, "Do you know what? I got into a bit of bother the other night. I went out with the lads lot and I was feeling a bit tasty. And it all
He got on top, didn't he?
it's all kicked off, I said. On and on.
Always kicking off. Always kicking off now. Always kicking off. Always kicking off now.
Tommy's always been like that. He always ends up having a fight anywhere he goes. So when you go out with Tommy, like, you got to always be thinking, when's it gonna kick off? And you wouldn't believe it, just as I thought it, guess what bloody happened? It kicks off.
Always kicking
One
off.
thing about Tommy, he loves
Always
a fight, you know,
kicking
mate.
off
You should have seen him
now.
go.
Always kicking off. Always kicking off
Oh,
now.
well, I was just off the fucking crust, making my way home, and I bumped into Tommy. And he says, "Come and have a drink with me, John." So I went along, didn't I? I didn't know he was going to end up having a fight. Do you know what I mean? It was like a fray down here. There was bottles, there was chairs, there was everything going. It was a mad ass, you know what I mean? And then Tommy turns around and guess what he did? He only pulled out a chip, didn't he? You know, one of them big ones like in Crocodile Dundee. Mad hatter. And I couldn't believe it. The old Bill got down there pretty fast, so I made my way out pretty fast. Tommy managed to get away and all. I don't know how he did it, but right now he's on the run, isn't he? Old Tommy.
Always kicking off.
Blinding fella though.
Always kicking off now. Always kicking off.
We go back a long way.
Always kicking off now.
So when I got back down to the manor, there was a firm outside the boozer. Said they wanted to have it off with Big Tommy. But I said I ain't seen Big Tommy, you know what I mean? They said Tommy's just done a couple of their fellas down the other boozer. Claret every day, you wouldn't guess what happened, like, because the firm down here, they don't take no shit.
People coming down here ain't about looking for people.
Nah, they saw it there, so guess what bloody happened?
Always kicking off.
He's got quite a few brothers,
Always
and all, you know
kicking
what
off
I mean?
now.
A big family, you know
Always
what I mean?
kicking
It's
off.
like f***ing football team.
Always kicking off now.
But I love old
Always
Tommy.
kicking off.
He's a diamond
Always
geezer.
kicking off now.
Before it all kicked off, Tommy had turned around and he said to me, he said he wanted to knock it on the head. All this
Knock it on the
rapping
head,
and
son?
all this stuff up the nose and all
Oh,
that.
that Charlie.
He wanted to knock it on the head because he was missing
do
his
you in,
stick,
son?
didn't he? You know what I mean? So Tommy ain't a bad fella really. He got nicked a couple of days after that and he's still in the clink now.
Always kicking off.
He's done a fair bit of bird
Always
Tommy.
kicking off now. Always kicking
I
off.
reckon he should be coming out soon.
Always kicking off now.
He was usually always getting
Always
banged
kicking
up.
off.
Wonder if he'll change.
Always kicking off now.
Tommy
Tommy was a
fella,
good man. Good man.
Blinding
Always
geezer.
kicking off though.
He went like he would fight, Tommy. He had a good reputation for fighting, you know what I mean? He used to fight down by the dock, prize fighting and all that sort of stuff. He was a real physical guy.